So my name is David Ofosu-Dorte. I'm senior partner of AB and David Africa, which is the name of the firm. Our main practice areas are grouped into 6. There are subcategories, but the main practice areas will cover dispute resolution, what we call government business and policy reform. We do infrastructure projects and PPPs. We do employment and labor practice, oil and gas, which goes with natural resources, and then corporate and finance. So these are the broad categories of practice areas. But under them are sub-practice areas where you will find things like tax, SME focus, etc., Africa trade. So we cover the entire broad spectrum of business law across the continent. So it depends on where you are looking at. If you are looking at Africa, then we are talking of a staff about 160. And these are independent member firms in various countries, out of which about 120 are the legal staff, and the proportion between the gender is skewed towards the female gender. But if we are talking about the Ghana office, which is where we are now at the moment, the staff is about 60, and the number of lawyers are 35, and it's heavily skewed towards the female gender. And of course, between the 35 and approximately 60 are the non-legal staff who play various supporting roles, from accounting to practice management to IT and various other support roles that makes us function wholly as a law firm. So we have 26 partners across Africa. The Ghana office has got 9 partners. Interestingly, the Ghana office has 6 female partners and 3 male partners. But Africa-wide, the partnership ratio is 13 to 13, so almost split in the middle as between female and male partner ratio. I'm generally not definitions focused, but my general understanding of gender equality is the ability to create equal opportunity for both gender, and for them to participate in the function that we play as a law firm, as a business law firm in particular. And the equity, in my view, will be the process that you take to achieve that in a fair, very balanced manner. So in terms of gender inclusion, it's the ability to ensure that the both genders, or all gender, as it were, are given the opportunity to participate in the process and the activities as a firm. So very important for various reasons. Life consists of human beings, and human beings come in gender of all kinds. So you cannot exclude one type of gender from the activities of a firm. So we are very, I wouldn't say just gender sensitive, but gender inclusive. So we make sure that we are not excluding any gender for that matter. But having said that, you also have to look at the landscape, and it makes business sense. If you look at the landscape, you realize that if you look at law firms over the last decade or more, maybe a couple of decades, there has been a huge increase in the number of female lawyers, especially across Africa. You don't find this in other continents, incidentally, but in Africa, the increase in female lawyers is quite heavy, and you cannot afford not to be balanced in your approach to gender and making sure that every gender is included. Otherwise, you are sacrificing the continuity of the business. So from that perspective, it's quite important. The other reason why it's important is also because each gender has its characteristics. And for the firm to continue to thrive and to be able to achieve its mission and vision, you must take into account the characteristics of every gender and how they are empowered to play the role or maximize their performance in the activities of the firm. So these are very important, to the firm. So the barriers to achieving gender equality in Ghana, I think reflects the challenges of achieving gender equality in Africa as a whole. It's not just a Ghana issue. First is the cultural norms. Most African countries, especially sub-Saharan Africa, over the last few decades have tended culturally to have looked at the woman's role more outside the corporate environment. Over the last 30 years, that role has really changed, and the female has actually become a significant part of the activity in the corporate environment. And those are the challenges that are also reflected in the Ghanaian society. So suddenly you have a situation where the corporate environment is very much fairly represented, or I should say heavily represented by female. And then you have to face the challenges of they having to balance their normal life of a female in the society in which they live with their life of work. Over the period, other than maternity leave, a lot of factors that were not taken into account in planning for the female. One of the things we have done, or some of the things we have done, is to take life as a whole, take the practice of law as a balance of life, as part of life that we need to balance. So what role does a woman play beyond practice of law? She may be a mother. For the period, she may be a nursing mother. She may have to go on maternity. She may have for a period to be taking care of the child even in the post-maternity leave period. So you will see that one of the things we've done is to introduce a situation where it makes it more conducive for the female to work in the environment. We allow children to come to the office. The female will close at 2 o'clock after the maternity period of 3 months. So for the next 3 months, he has the ability to close at 2 o'clock. And as I said, we have a place where you can have your child be around until she closes and go home. When we do have functions, we allow them to bring family around. These things tend to make it conducive for them not to abandon the corporate life, but to continue the corporate life, even though they are still having the normal life of a woman. I mean, of course, in our Ghanaian society, men don't get pregnant. To the best of my knowledge, nor do they go on maternity leave. But we have taken care of this in order to make it more conducive for the female lawyers here. The profession itself tends to be very conservative. And if you look at the history of the profession, this is a profession that, if you take Ghana's case, at one point did not even allow female to wear trousers, and there had to be a special resolution for females to wear trousers to court, for that matter. And this was about up to 1999. For such a conservative profession, recognizing the change that the society is going through and the presence of the female, it's one of the things that every an employer worth his salt need to take care of. So it's not just a question of maternity leave and allowing a female to bring their kids to the office, but giving them the opportunity to be empowered to go through the same level of training that any other lawyer will go through without discrimination. The key thing that an employer should look out for when he is employing any staff are the issues of integrity, ability to learn, whether the person has the capacity to play the role that he's being engaged. And I can say that between the female and male, there's really no difference, in this. So if you took care of that special needs the female has, just the issue of being a mother at a point in time in her life, it tends to balance out. And what we have found is that, unlike many countries outside Africa, the retention rate for the female here tends to be very high. I think men should be very much involved in gender equality. It's not a female thing. And before I even go on, one of the unique things we did as a firm is to, as it were, sensitize the men to the female issue by creating paternity leave. It's not a requirement of the law, but we instituted it as a firm that if your wife gave birth You have the right to take leave, which comes at fully paid leave that you enable you help your wife for a period. That creates a sensitivity in the male colleagues as to the needs of female, because if the male has a wife and he can go on paternity leave to help the wife, he becomes very conscious of the needs of the colleague females that he or she is working with. So we should not leave it as a female issue. It's a male-female issue. And we should, as it were, constantly draw attention of males to the need for a balanced life. And every human being, you are not just a lawyer. You are either a father, a son, a wife, a mother, a church member. All these roles need to be balanced. And if we let our male colleagues understand that, it makes it easier for them to adapt and also to help the female instead of patronizing them, as at times it exists in some environment. And that way, everybody see each other as equal. And invariably, most of our work is done by female and male working together. So I think over the years, any issues at barrier or any mindset limitations on the part of the male, to the best of my knowledge, have largely been eliminated. Yeah, and they work in harmony. Yeah, so the firm has addressed gender inclusive policies both directly and indirectly, and we constantly improve it. Our employee manual addresses the issues directly, the need for us to treat each other equally, the fact that we are an equal opportunity employer, the fact that there is no discrimination against each gender. And if you notice in the firm, or it is noticeable, put it that way, in the firm, that the female progression is same as the male progression. There's an evaluation, and to the extent that the person meets the evaluation criteria, there's no restriction just because the person maybe had maternity leave or the person was off duty as a result of child issues or as a result of family issues. Because the male do have family issues as well, where at times they have to go off. So our current managing partner, for example, is a female, and she joined the firm in the year 2000 and has still stayed here, and she's got two children, both of whom were had while she's working here. So that's a typical example, and there are other female staff here who have had kids here. Some have had 2 or 3 kids, and they are still working with us and have risen to partnership or to head of administration. The head of administration of the firm has been with the firm since the beginning of the firm, 24 years ago, and has had her children and is having a family life here. So we have addressed these things, like I said, both directly and indirectly. Female are allowed to go on courses. They have the same opportunity to enhance their career. There are some challenges, however. So for example, when a female goes on maternity, being relieved during that period or during the post-maternity period when he or she has to close early, what arrangements do we make? What are the handing over notes? Also making arrangements for them to work from home or work from remote at times. The other challenge that comes to mind that is worth mentioning is when they have to travel. For example, in our litigation practice group, which is one of our practice group, you notice that for a long period, it's noticeable that for a very long period, it was more male biased than female. Interestingly, now it is more female dominated than male dominated. And one of the challenges had to do with the number of cases that they had to do in court outside Accra, where they had to travel and where female had challenges. If it's a nursing mother, how do you travel with the children and all that? But that has changed, and at the moment, the 2 co-heads of the litigation and dispute resolution group, one is a female, one is a male. So those issues have been resolved, and I think those are the practical ways that we have had to deal with this over the last 20 odd years that we've been in practice. Yes, the various departments reflect gender equality. As I emphasize, there is no discrimination as to which department you join. One of the unique things about AB and David Africa is that you are allowed to choose your practice group. and the practice group is chosen not based on gender. It's chosen based on your interest in the practice group, the availability of, as it were, space within that practice group in terms of the workflow that we do have, and your capacity to perform the kind of task that is in a practice group. And all our practice group have got females and male in them. I did mention earlier that the dispute resolution and litigation practice group was initially male dominated, but now the balance is set. I mean, it's very fairly balanced with a co-head, one female, one male. Our oil and gas practice group, as an example, at the moment is an all-female practice group, and as you are aware, natural resources is such a heavy task. So to have an all-female practice group, practice team, and the head is a female, I mean, clearly shows the extent to which you have addressed this issue. So I do not see in the practice departments any such challenges at the moment. In the non-law practice departments, we have a head of administration who is female, and all the other sectors do have female also in them. Our IT is currently headed by a male, but it's not through any conscious effort to discriminate against any female. In any event, the female population here is skewed towards, I mean, the gender balance here is skewed towards female. It's about 70-30 ratio. So, I mean, we don't have that challenge actually. A gender equal legal profession is not just beneficial but essential. Ghana and most African countries are actually having a population which has more female than male. So it wouldn't make business sense for you to, I mean, not have a gender equal policy. More so, I'm an adjunct lecturer at the law school, and over the last, 7 to 8 years, I've noticed an increase in the number of female students in the classroom. And these were classes which, over a decade or a decade and a half ago, used to be male dominated. So even in the future, from how I see it, it's more likely that the female will either dominate or be at par with the male in terms of number. So it will not be a wise decision on the part of any employer or any business person not to be having an outlook where you see that the female is likely to be dominating or playing an equal role, and that's how I see and I see it. And in planning for the outlook of the firm over the next years, foreseeable future, this policy is not going to change. If anything at all, it's going to become more enhanced to make it easy for us to continue in practice.